I just remember, going to an all-white Christian school and not being taken seriously or just literally been looking at as a caricature.
Guys, welcome to a new episode of Unboxed. My name is David. I'm your host today, and we will be talking about growing up in an immigrant family, or also just our personal experiences living as immigrants in foreign society. But before we get into that, I just want to introduce our awesome panelists here today.
Hello, I'm Shadow.
Lillian.
I'm Tunji.
My name is Ariam.
What's up? I'm Yul.
Hi, I'm Tigist.
And as I said before, I'm your host, David. So, yeah, I just wanted to start the conversation with us talking about our personal experiences, making that adjustment. So living in a society where we're different, but also having our backgrounds be of, I think we're all here of African descent. So how did we navigate that? What sorts of, can you speak from personal experience in how you made that adjustment?
So I'll go first. I grew up in an Ethiopian Canadian household. My beautiful parents, shout out to Abai and Shalugase, they immigrated from Ethiopia to Vancouver in the mid to late 80s. And, I grew up in a very proud Ethiopian household. I've always been very proud to be Ethiopian, to be Abasha, to be black. But I also grew up in a Canadian environment, and it was really difficult navigating that because, a really humorous example would be every year when Halloween would come around, my brother Albo and I would have to, vehemently argue with our parents and convince them that if I went as Batman and if my brother went as Superman, then we're not celebrating Satan's birthday. We're just like, we want some candy. It's not that deep. But, that in itself was, I think it's like a prime example of what it's like growing up with the dichotomy of two very different cultures. One that's very westernized and one that's very, this embodies a traditional African upbringing. And I'm 24 years old now. Sounds super crazy for me to say that out loud, but it's really interesting how, I'm a young black man and I'm still trying to navigate it at this point in my life. I don't know if, honestly, I don't know if I'll ever get to the point where I'm gonna say, all right, I get it. I'm this much Canadian and this much Ethiopian or Abasha, but it's something that I navigate when, and I have been navigating since I grew up in predominantly white churches and a predominantly white Christian private high school. Mm-hmm. And it was really difficult and really finding my identity. And it was difficult, a journey, but it was difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I also think like there's definitely benefits to, growing up with parents that are immigrants. Like my parents weren't like fresh off the boat, you know what I'm saying? Like they were in Canada for a while before they had me, but they definitely instilled in me so for example, like when people come from another country over here, they have just a great understanding of the opportunities that are here in a place like Canada or the United States. And that's definitely something that I have as opposed to the people that I probably grew up with in high school and even universities. Like I just sort of had an innate understanding of it's not this good for everybody. And so if you have an opportunity, you should definitely take advantage. Another thing that was instilled from me from being from an immigrant background is respect for authority. That was huge, especially coming up in school. I saw some kids yelling at the teachers and saying the teachers hated them and stuff. And I was just I don't know, that's my teacher. I'm gonna respect them even if they're being, not the best person. Yeah. That's just what you grow up with. If there's someone's older than you, you just respect them. Mm-hmm. And then now looking back on it, I probably, would see how kids would complain about certain people. But but all that to say, that's definitely a struggle navigating through two cultures. But there's definitely positives that come with it because it just gives you sort of a more well-rounded, I think, perspective and worldview. So,
well, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I think when you're growing up as an immigrant, it's a very complicated status to be in because you have to manage that aspect of, okay, I want to hold on to my roots. I want to try to adapt and live somewhat comfortably in this foreign land, quote unquote. But then also you have to appreciate the opportunity in some sense that you're being given. There are many who would love to be in this position where we're from, many who would love to live here. And so was that something, and this is a general question, is that something that you had that internal realization of, I need to do the best I can in these circumstances, or was that something that was impressed on you by family, parents, etc.?
So my experience is a little bit different in that I moved here when I was about 16 years old. And so I already had a world set for me and, just a different life. I am Eritrean and I was born in Eritrea, but I grew up moving around between Eritrea, Uganda, and Dubai. And so my experience growing up includes all these 3 different countries and very different cultures, beliefs, religion, and all of that. And so I was pre-informed of like what I was getting myself into. However, the experience was very, very different in that I was not only hearing about the society that I was going to be part of, but I was experiencing, what it's like to be a Black woman in a space that's all like white, Asian, or like brown. And so just very different for me. Mm-hmm. And so that was very, very hard. But the one thing that I always think about is, would I have these opportunities back home? Mm-hmm. And so, I have to think in like, what was my goal for coming here, or what was my goal for my parents to bring me here? And so mentally and emotionally, it's not a place that I would rather be here. I'd rather be back home. When I think about my emotional and mental health well-being, I'd rather be back home where I am more comfortable leading a life, being the person that I am, coming from the culture that I come from. So mentally and emotionally, I think the goal of like me being the healthiest person that I can be, that goal can only be achieved when I move back home. Mm-hmm. However, when I think of the opportunities, because we do live in a very capitalist society, and so when I think about my goals in terms of like my longevity in this world, maybe my kids, my grandkids, and all of these things, because the reason my parents brought me here is for a better life, because mental health is not something that we really talk about. So that wasn't part of, the equation. However, when I think about all these materialistic, when I think about, the goals that I have, the physical goals that I have, I think this is a place where I can see myself thrive more than I would back home, because
I'm so glad you took it there, because I think that we deal with a lot of pressure coming from immigrant families of, knowing how people are living back where we're from. But I think in a sense I don't want to say we're being misled, but there's this idea in North America that no matter all you have to do is work hard. Work as hard as you can, and you can achieve what you want to achieve. There's a dream, then you just have to put in all the work. And maybe our parents have bought into that dream and have impressed that on us as younger people. But then at the same time, how do we explain to them that we realize that not everyone has the same path, not everyone has the same opportunity to reach where you want to reach, and we have to work a little bit harder to get there. So how do we communicate that to them? And like you say, you have to let go of parts of yourself.
I feel like I'm talking too much, but one of the things that I had to learn was that because I am the immigrant, it's not only my parents.
Yeah.
So I see what it's like back home and I see what it's like now. Mm-hmm. And so there's a part of me that says, you can work hard if you really want it. Mm-hmm. You can suck it up in that office, you can suck it up in that classroom and work hard. But like I said, there's a part of me that I have to let go. Yeah. And the part of me that you have to let go is what your parents can't see, because they haven't been given the opportunity to see it as something important, and that's your mental health. Mm-hmm. Because you can go so far working hard. You can go so far sucking it up. it can be in the office, it can be the classroom, whatever it is. We're humans. We are social beings, so we adhere to so many things that people tell us, or what we're taught to believe of ourselves, that we can only reach so far. And so I'm in that position where I'm like, I realize all these things, but where do I go from here? Because my experience is not like so many other people, because Vancouver is not, it doesn't have a lot of people. So I feel like I see both parts where I'm like, you can work as hard as you can, but there's so much you can go.
Yeah.
I think also like there's a lot of times with our parents, there's like a few like communication barriers, like huge communication barriers sometimes that you have to get over, because they come from different generations and they also come from different life experiences, right? So for example, when like for a lot of our parents, like when you say hard work, if you come from a second or third world country, that means that you're working hard. That means you're physically doing something with your body. That means if you're working hard, that means at the end of the day you're coming back, you're exhausted, you're tired, and you like push through because you have other responsibilities. But like where we grow up, working hard can mean I'm spending 2 hours working on my Instagram videos that I'm planning the post and everything. That's putting out a lot of content, but it doesn't appear like it doesn't look the same. Yeah. Like spending a bunch of time like watching, like Denzel Washington and Will Smith. I'm studying the film, but I'm not like doing stuff physically. So what my parents are seeing is just me on the couch, like just like all like this. It looks really lazy, granted, right? So that's a huge thing. It's just like, no, like this is what I'm doing. Like there is a plan in place. It's just I know it doesn't look like I'm working hard, but I am, and like I'm doing more than most. But
I think also a big part of it is we have expectations from our parents, but we also have societal expectations being in this part of the world, or at least I feel like I experienced that. Like even in the area of losing, so to speak, a part of yourself, I can kind of relate to that. I've noticed that in certain circles, I can't show every side of myself. Yeah. It's either I'm the educated Black woman or I'm the artistic Black woman, or whatever else. And it's like, it's hard for people to, because a lot of people haven't been exposed to Black women, Black men, and educated Black women, Black men in general, and especially in a place like Vancouver, they don't really know what to expect when they meet you. So it's easier to put you in a certain box of understanding. Yeah. And so it becomes, there's a pressure there for you as well to be like, okay, but who am I? When do I get to actually be who I really want to be? And then on the side of like parents and stuff, we all know the efforts that it took them to come here. So I guess like for myself, I think a lot of times in my mind, at the back of my mind, I'm thinking, am I making them proud if I make certain decisions and things like that? But at the same time, it's like they brought us here for a reason to get more opportunities. But then we're also paving the way for future generations that will have better opportunities because we're breaking more glass ceilings and then they'll get to break more. So it's like, is there really a path? I don't think so. Like it's just a matter of figuring it out as you go along, and then hopefully we can help like the next generation of people. And mental health, I definitely agree, is so important, because I find that a lot of Black people struggle with depression, struggle with anxiety, because there's that feeling of like, oh, I want to be the best that I can be, but at the same time, you're so concerned about what everybody else thinks about you, what your parents think about you, what your culture thinks about you.
We've all fallen into this unfortunate place of living our lives for our parents. And so it's like, when does that stop, and when do we start living for ourselves? Because I think a big question that we have to answer is that, okay, I have all these degrees, I have this great job, I have a path, I have that, but am I happy? Right? And that's the big question. Are you happy? And if you're not happy, why is that? And are you prioritizing your happiness? Are you prioritizing your parents' happiness? So how do you struggle with that?
My parents work so hard. Like they're my role models. The Avengers aren't my superheroes, and my parents are my superheroes. They immigrated from Ethiopia, and they had like a dime in their pockets, and I've seen them work so hard to get where they're at. Now they have this nice home in Cloverdale. They have the careers that they wanted to get. They have to go back to school, back to training to get the careers they wanted. And so growing up, I've always idolized my parents, and I saw how hard they worked, and I always had this profound desire to just please them, to make them happy. And I remember just in the past couple of years, just that desire was intensified and strengthened. And I remember just, my parents, for as I became a young man, my mom and dad were like, hey, we're proud of you, because they saw how much pressure I put on myself, even though they always let me know how proud they were of me and how much they love me. And, my brother and my sister always told me how much they're proud of me, but for some reason, I wanted to make them proud, and I wanted to really go above and beyond for my parents, And in addition to that, I just remember, going to an all-white Christian school and not being taken seriously, or just literally been looking at as a caricature. And I'm a young black man who loves hip hop and who loves culture, but I love literature, and I grew up on Shakespeare, and I reading is my escape. And so I always felt like there was a chip on my shoulder, especially with a lot of comments made to me in high school that you're smart for a black kid, and I know it's so corny and I can't do that same belonging, but that's something that was always, that I always felt like, and there was a mold I needed to break, and I needed to be twice as better as the other kids just to be looked at as a smart kid. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And I remember the last 2 semesters of my undergrad, and I'm not, boasting, I'm telling you guys, I promise you.
No, do it. Let's hear it.
But the last 2 semesters of my undergrad, I got a 4.0 GPA.
Hey, let's talk.
But I still realized that it wasn't enough. There was something else I needed to. And my mom and dad, we always have been best friends, and I really appreciate that. But that was a strain in our relationship, because they're like, you're enough, you also why are you, what are you looking for? And I hope I don't come across as saying you don't have to prove anything to anyone, because there's some shit you're gonna have to go through that I'm not gonna have to go through ever, right? So I'm not belittling the vexations and the trials and tribulations that black women have to go through, but hearing you have to say that, and and just looking at the other black women on this table, y'all don't need to prove anything to anyone either.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's for the longest time, I felt like I had to be not only a representation of my family, but a representation of black women, everything. There's so much that I thought I had to do, and I'm going into teaching. That's something that not necessarily, it's not a doctor, it's not a lawyer, it's not something that my parents...
It's important.
It's still amazing, yeah. And for me, the longest time having to always explain why I wanted to do it, and now I don't feel the need to do it. I'm just saying, it makes me happy, and that's something I want to do. I feel with all of us, one listening, everyone kind of had that moment, and at the same time, a lot of people don't have that opportunity, and so for them, and then those who just kind of follow the line and kind of get lost in that, I think that's where mental health becomes a huge issue, because then that's something that they won't understand until later on. Right. And so I feel when I finally realized I don't have to work myself to the point where I have to be someone I'm not. I think that's a very important thing that it took me a while to get to.
I think, sorry, I was just gonna say, instead of, not that I have the answer for you guys, but the fact that we feel like we have to prove ourselves is because we have to work twice as hard. Yeah. So not that you have to prove yourself, but in order for you to get into anything that the white people, the Asian people, the brown people have, you have to get that 4.0 GPA, unfortunately. And so when I look at the careers that we're in, and how we have to justify that, how we have to justify it to our parents, because we are in a position where, there's this is you, there's the opportunity, there's your community, your people, your parents, and everything. There's so many hurdles that they can't see. There's so many things. You have to get here in order to survive, right? However, all these things that you can see, all these things that you have to work hard for, you feel like you have to prove to these people that you are actually trying to get there. But trying to get there is harder and harder every time you try to prove it to them, because you lose yourself.
So difficult, because there's so many pressures coming from different directions, where living in this place and being in close proximity with a white dominated society, you're always getting that pressure of prove to us that you belong here. Yeah. Versus, looking at your roots and understanding you have to prove to your family, prove to people who are from your country or culture that you know where you come from. So prove that to them. And then also hand in hand with that, prove that you understand the opportunity you've been given. Yeah. So in all the complexity of that, you lose yourself, right? So how do you navigate that? Like, how do you struggle with that?
I feel like a lot of immigrant kids don't even know what their identity is outside of what their parents have set for them. So it's like, let's even start from that. Let's start from, okay, taking some time to discover who you are as a person. Because a lot of times we choke ourselves so much and we don't even give ourselves room to do that. And the moment I discovered like who I want to be, it sort of, as much as balancing so many things at the same time is frustrating, at the end of the day, I have an end goal in mind. Because I'm like, I know who I am, I know what I want to do with my life, I explain that to my parents, so it's like, it gives me this assurance of like, okay, I'm working towards that. But then a lot of people don't even do that. So it's like, let's even start from there. Let's start from the kids who are constantly being pressured right now, and all the Black kids that are being asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? When they don't even know, they haven't even been given the chance to just discover. Or they say, oh, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be an engineer. You know what I mean? So let's start from that foundational step. And then for the people who are already sort of in the working world and stuff like that, I think a lot of people just need to take a step back. Like, are you healthy? Are you happy? Like what you said before. And if you're not, then take the time to actually discover like what's making me anxious, what's making me feel depressed, what's making me feel worried. You know?
I honestly think that even when you're talking about immigration, and of course, obviously race, gender already plays a huge role in it. And it's crazy how we talk about, you know, this sort of self-fulfillment and enlightenment coming at such a huge cost. But even when you think about the fact that, you know, we refer to ourselves as immigrants, but, you know, when I think of all the foreigners who go back to Kenya, they're not immigrants. They are usually seen as expatriates. You know, the sense of uprooting yourself from your home country for white people, and even now for the Chinese who are all moving to Africa, it's seen as an amazing opportunity for self-discovery. It's you know, it's a paradise. It's like a heaven, but it's a complete opposite for, you know, our parents and people who look like us, who come from our backgrounds. For us, often immigration looks like, you know, an act of survival, where even the privilege of even thinking about purpose, fulfillment, or happiness is not even part of the equation. You know, like sometimes when you hear about, or at least when I hear other different so-called immigrant groups talking about, they talk about like, okay, my parents suffered so I could find happiness. And for me, it sounds unfair because they too deserve to find that happiness. But if they're still crippled by this idea that, you know, moving to a Western world provides stability, provides happiness, you still don't find it because my parents are Black, they endure racism in Germany. Like, it still happens. And then, of course, like, I grew up having to witness it, you know, and it doesn't really change. So the circumstances that they have to navigate the world with, we inherit that same perspective. So what are the chances that our children inherit the exact same thing too? So even like the sense of immigration, or at least the sense of adventure and moving to different places and being a different person is never going to be awarded to people who look like us.
Hey guys, I'm David.
And I'm Delphina. We're your co-creators of Unboxed. Thank you for watching another episode.
If you like what you watch, be sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel, comment below, share it, and let us know your thoughts.
You can also check us out on social media platforms at Unboxedshow on Instagram and Facebook.
And also be sure to check out our full uncut podcast versions, which you can find on
iTunes, Spotify,
and Anchor.
And so that's it for now. Thank you for watching again, and we'll catch you guys later.